Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm back here with another My Team Career Mode Season 3 video, and it is the Imola GP weekend. Today we've got qualifying and the race in this video. That's of course what we're doing in Season 3. Each video under 1 hour, and we've got quali and race in it. That's of course what we did in the last video at Bahrain, which was the season opener. Spoiler warning, if you haven't watched it, click off the video now, because we're going to head over there to have a little recap of the results in a second. And it was a really, really fun Grand Prix. I've got to say, we managed to take the win, 25 points in the end there. Charles finished P2 with the fastest lap to take 19. First stint, we actually ended up fighting for 9 laps, both for start on the softs. I then went to the mediums till the end. Charles did, of course, soft medium on his second stint, comfortably 2 seconds ahead of us for all of that, but then of course pitted again, only closed the gap to 13 seconds, and it is first blood to ourselves in this championship fight. Gazzy got an incredible P3 last time out for AlphaTauri, executing that one-stop strategy perfectly. That medium to hard from outside the top 10, 15 points for him. Verstappen and Perez made it a decent start to Red Bull. Verstappen P4 and Perez P8. So Red Bull with a lot better of a start to their season than Mercedes. Hamilton had a mechanical failure. Valtteri Bottas only took a single point. Ferrari looking a tad stronger than McLaren. Ricciardo failed to score. Meanwhile, Carlos Sainz for Ferrari took P5. His teammate scored 2 points on his debut. Matsushita had a really good debut, 14th for him. Great way to start the season. Tsunoda and Giovinazzi looked decent at Alfa Romeo for Tsunoda, and Williams for Giovinazzi in their debut for the team. And then, of course, Guan Yu Zhou and Lewis Hamilton did not finish the race. Real shame for Guan Yu Zhou. He was running well until he was struck by a mechanical failure. The personnel department, I think, will improve Charles' focus. We want a very, very strong teammate. And now, sponsorship renewal time. Shark, and I don't want to keep this one actually, because we've got to beat the team above us in the R&D to get anything from it. And the problem is, if we do that, well, there's no one above us in the R&D, so we can't actually get any points for that. Well, not points really, money. But we are, I think, going to go with Pacifico, first position for 4 laps. That's not too bad, I think. Quite a nice one. And I like the logo on our car, so there we go. That's half the decision. It will look nice on the car. I'll get that sorted to be on the car. For the weekend, a minor, major, and 2 ultimate upgrades set for ourselves coming in. Hopefully none of them fail. And the first one is the minor. We get that one through nicely. And a powertrain department event. I don't want to be losing resource points, yeah. Just for morale. 750 resource points, quite a lot. I know we like good morale at the team, but don't really want to be losing too many R&D points. 1,107 in the bank at the moment. And now, after the weekly income, we can have a little look. We could actually go for another reliability upgrade. Wouldn't mind one of them. Definitely want to have a bit of a push in the reliability department. Don't want to risk getting a mechanical failure, especially in such a close fight with Charles. But of course, he has to deal with the low reliability too. I think we'll go with control electronics, because that's one of the parts of the car that we've really struggled with. We'll be able to get that in for Spain. In terms of where we really struggle with the control electronics, so I definitely want to improve them. Having a look, yeah, just minor upgrades in the aero department that are left. I don't think we're going to bother with any of them. I think we might save up a little bit. All these ultimate or major upgrades are way too expensive for us at the moment, so we're not going to go for any other upgrades. ECU, oh, and it's failed. Of course it has. Very frustrating there. And that was going to nicely push us ahead of Mercedes at the top of the standings in the powertrain department, and that's certainly not going to happen. Definitely want to have a look at getting that exhaust upgrade in, but we are a little bit short at the moment. We'll make sure we can get that ECU sorted for Spain. Now, the 12th is coming up soon. We're stopped by personnel department. I think we'll go for a bit of a claim. That's going to help the team, of course, It's going to improve the team acclaim. We get more sponsors. We get more income. Basically, that's how it works. Let's continue along. Yes, the hydraulics is in. That's an important upgrade. That pushes us further ahead in the chassis department. Just 2 minor brake upgrades left. We can sort of take our foot off the pedal in that department and focus a bit more on aero and powertrain and durability towards the end of the season. We're looking pretty strong in aero at the moment. Hopefully this upgrade comes through. And it doesn't. Oh, the frustrations. The powertrain major upgrade failed, and then an upgrade I really wanted, a bit more front downforce, that fails too. We'll get that in for Spain, but Ferrari actually jump ahead of us in the aero there, looking pretty decent there. And of course, it is McLaren second in the chassis, and we'll have a look. Oh, Aston Martin jumping up there in the powertrain, and we are near the bottom. Well, at the bottom in durability, which is a little bit concerning. Hopefully, though, our car will be able to make it through the weekend. No need to replace anything. See, with 28% at wear. I'll probably get quite worn around Imola because I've got a tendency to take the curbs. I think we'll go for a couple of upgrades. Of course, we want to increase the fabrication for the durability. Definitely want to be able to get more than one upgrade in at a time. And going, I think we'll go with quality control. We'll go quality control in durability. Not too expensive there. And then the fitness center upgrade. That's level 2 for that, spec 2. And they're having a look at the chassis department quality control. That would reduce failure chance, of course. But I think definitely want to have a look at maybe getting another upgrade in, but not at the moment. We are now going to head to the results of free practice. We got a nice amount of R&D. So did Charles, 1,775 in the bank, and of course some development boosts. A lot of those being for the durability department, but it is going to rain in qualifying. Not exactly what I was wanting. We go a bit better around here in the dry, but intermediate conditions for quali. We should be alright in those. Should be able to get some decent lap times in. I think we'll be a bit off the pace of Charles, but if we can get somewhere around him, we can do the work in the race. And then, of course, in terms of the race, nice and sunny and bright out on track. We do have a rivalry with Max Verstappen at the moment. That is 5-2 to ourselves after a strong Bahrain Grand Prix weekend. In terms of upgrades then, what more can we try to get in the R&D? I don't particularly... I would love to be able to go for that upgrade, the exhaust upgrade, but a bit too expensive. Similarly, for the rotors, that's rather frustrating. Not too bothered about the fuel efficiency upgrade. Don't really want to invest in a minor brakes upgrade at the moment. I think we're going to leave that for a little while and have a look at that after the GP weekend. But the R&D graph, and we still have a firm lead at the top. Really comfortable lead over Mercedes. Mercedes now P2 in that R&D. Red Bull have dropped off a little bit down to P4. Ferrari in between Mercedes and Red Bull. The gaps between those three incredibly small though, so I'd expect them to be tussling on track. And McLaren could get into the mix. They are a little bit further back, not too far though, only a tenth or two, so some good results from Norris and Ricciardo, and they could be right there. That's going to be a very interesting fight. Then quite a big chunk now back to the midfield. That's increasing. Alpine and Aston Martin still very close together. Alpine's slightly more developed, but that'll come down to the drivers, and we've seen that Alpine have pretty much outperformed Aston Martin so far this season, and the gap to AlphaTauri has once again increased. They have really stolen upgrades, and that's costing them quite a lot. They're right there with Alfa Romeo. Williams just a little bit behind, and then of course Haas right at the bottom, but are starting to make inroads once again on Williams, sort of back to where they were at Jeddah. So we have a comfortable lead and then a massive fight behind us with Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull and McLaren. And then of course Alpine versus Aston Martin and AlphaTauri, despite what is quite a poor car, get into the mix with those two in that midfield battle. Certainly looking very interesting, got to say. On to Q1 and qualifying we go, and as I suspected, it is the intermediate tyres, the wets, a little bit slower, bit too wet for them, and the slicks way out of the question. It looks like it's going to be intermediates all the way through, which I'm certainly going to be quite interesting to get a wet quality session in. And we begin here in Q1. Not sure where the pace will be. We'll either have an absolute disaster or we'll make it through to Q3 and get a decent result there. In terms of grip, it is quite slippery out on track, and you can see there with the car sliding, but not absolutely ridiculous. We can get the car rotated reasonably well, which is often one of the issues. It's very, very understeery and very, very sensitive on the exit, and it doesn't feel too bad. Russell going quickest as we get a little bit sliding on the exit, and that is a purple sector 1, so very decent start to the lap as Bottas then tops the timing charts. Wasn't expecting a purple sector 1, I've got to say. And now as we're heading through the final sector with the downhill braking zone, always very difficult in wet conditions. We negotiate that pretty nicely, and now the final corner. We get a good exit off there, and this has been a very decent lap from my first lap in quali. Where are we going to go? It's a very clean final sector, and it's enough for P1, a 23.6, and that puts us ahead of Bottas and Russell, and we've been dropped down to P3 after returning to the pits. Verstappen and Sainz have gone minimally quicker, but I think that lap will be enough to get us through. Only 11 drivers have gone. Still a lot of big names to go, but that should be pretty comfortable for us to make it through to Q2. And it is. Charles, my teammate, does manage to go quickest. 1 minute 22.3, but we are P11 and comfortably through. Quite a bit off my teammate, but certainly a lot more pace to be found. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get that close to my teammate, but good to know we managed to get through pretty comfortably there. We just won that. Charles is quickest. Really great, solid lap there. Taster for what's to come. Then Norris and Russell, P2 and P3. Great work to be ahead of the Mercedes and the Red Bulls. Russell quite a bit ahead of his teammate. Then the Mercs of Bottas and then Hamilton, that's P4 and P5. Ricciardo's P6 for McLaren. Then Fernando Alonso with a great P7 for Alpine, followed by the two Red Bulls, Perez leading Verstappen P8 and P9. Then it's Carlos Sainz rounding outside the top 10 for Ferrari. We are P11, and then P12, a fantastic result in Q1 for Pierre Gasly. We know that AlphaTauri is quite weak compared to the Alpines and the Aston Martins. Great work from him, and of course Lance Stroll to be just a couple of tenths behind, but sandwiched in between the AlphaTauris, you've got Nobuharu Matsushita showing great pace again on his debut season. Always great to see, and his teammate starting to find a bit of pace in that Aston Martin too. Minimally off Matsushita there for Schwartzman, and solid P15. Esteban Ocon though struggling in P16 in that Alpine. Really close to elimination zone. 2 tenths ahead of Tsunoda, who's P17. So Ocon struggling a little bit. He'll want to get that fixed. Tsunoda, my teammate from last season, is out in Q1 in that Alfa Romeo. Couldn't find that 2 tenths to get him through to Q2. Antonio Giovinazzi's P18 for Williams. Solid work there. Only 3 tenths off a quicker Alfa Romeo. Schumacher doing wonders in that Haas to get P19. Just 2 tenths off the Williams. 5 tenths off the Alfa Romeo, so a very good qualifying result for Mick Schumacher, considering that Haas is improving, but is still really, really quite slow. And of course, he's ahead of Nicholas Latifi in the Williams, struggling a bit compared to his teammate, but only 2 tenths behind, so it's not too bad. Bit surprised though to see Schumacher in front. Then Guan Yu Zhou once again struggling in that Alfa Romeo, 6 tenths off his teammate, just not really managing to find that pace. Neither is Nikita Mazepin once again at the back. So we lose the same drivers in Q1 that we lost back in round number 1 at Bahrain last time out, and we're now into Q2 starting our lap. And in sector 1 in the wet we'd be going really decently, getting some good purple sectors. Sector 2 has sort of been our nemesis as we run over the curves at turn 3 there. Not something I would recommend to do. We end up doing that though. And now heading towards the hairpin, and we go purple in sector 1. Nice way to begin the second part of qualifying. My teammate's still yet to go out, and now through Aqua Minerale, and we're heading up the hill, and that is actually very nice and clean as Hamilton goes quickest. That is first time in quali, and I've only done one lap before this, that we actually manage, as we I'll mess up this chicane, that we've actually managed to take that properly and not end up losing time by going onto the blue runoff and slowing down. And that gave us a purple middle sector. Not sure how we'll fare at the end of this lap with that very messy chicane section, but pretty nice and clean if we can just get it hooked up nicely. Bit too much of the curb there on the inside, but we are going to go over the line. What's that going to be? Oh, a 23.2. I think we'll return to the pits quicker than Hamilton there. And having a look at where we are now, P4, we are slower than Bottas, Perez and Sainz, but we are quicker than Norris and Hamilton. Still, only 11 drivers have gone, so we've got likes of Leclerc, Verstappen and Russell to go. However, I think that should be plenty to get us through to Q2. And having a look at the results, maybe not as close as I thought. Well, that is a lot closer than I thought. Yeah, I thought we'd be pretty comfortably through, and we make it through by under 2/10 there. P10 for us. We do make it through. That's the good thing. I didn't think it'd be that close at all. I thought we'd be about P7, P8, but we are right on the edge of it. We managed to make it through, though, with a 23.2. Only one lap needed in Q1 and Q2. Not too bad, that. A little bit close, but at least we're going to make it through to Q3. The Red Bulls, though, topping the charts. Perez ahead of Verstappen. They're looking a lot better than they did in Q1. Once again, Perez quicker than Verstappen. That's something we've seen a few times. Russell, P3. Ricciardo, P4. Very interesting. Usually it's their teammates who are quicker, but great to see those guys switching it around a little bit in Q2. Bottas, P5 for Mercedes. The Merc's not looking too great. His teammate down in P8. Red Bull with the advantage at this stage now. Charles Leclerc, my teammate, P6. I don't think he went out again, though. I think there's still going to be a lot more to see from him in Q3. Probably setting some ridiculously quick times. He's ahead of Carlos Sainz, who's in the Ferrari. He's a chunk off his teammate. Then Lewis Hamilton struggling down there in P8. Not that fantastic for him. Maybe struggling a little bit more with grip as it starts to get slightly more wet out on track. P8, quite a bit off his teammate. Then Lando Norris, P9. He'll be disappointed with that. Whole 0.8 off Perez's time in the Red Bull. And quite a way off his teammate. And we just make it through in P10. Certainly don't want to leave it to be that risky again this season. But got to take some risks. Then the Alpines are out in Q2. Alonso leading Ocon, but fantastic pace from that duo once again. They're looking really strong, and I wouldn't count them out some points in the race. No surprises, though, to see Alonso ahead of Esteban. Then Pierre Gasly follows his fellow countryman. He's in the AlphaTauri, though, for Pierre. P13, and a very solid quality result there, because that AlphaTauri isn't that quick at all this weekend, and it's consistently getting worse. So great work to be ahead of the Aston Martin of Matsushita. P14, really great on only his second qualifying session, showing some more fantastic qualifying pace. He's ahead of Lance Stroll, who'll be reasonably happy with that. He's ahead of one of the Aston Martins, and in a reasonably weak AlphaTauri, that's a pretty solid quality result for the Canadian. Maybe would have hoped to have been right where his teammate is, but still solid. Then Schwartzman, quite a chunk off the pace there. Maybe he couldn't find the sort of form he got in Q1, but still through to Q2, an appearance there, and P16 is where he will start on the grid. A bit disappointing, but I'm sure I'll come back in the race. And on to Q3 now. We're not going to be doing just one lap in Q3. We're going to try and fit in quite a few. And now we are heading down the main straight. I think a Red Bull has just exited the pits. That is Checo Perez in front of us. We'll have to try and get past him. Hopefully he won't obstruct us. Whoa, a little snap. And we correct it. That's going to cost us time. And then we run a little bit wide. That's quite costly. We're pretty smooth through turn 4 and turn 5. But into the hairpin. No purple sector 1. I know my teammate's out on track, but we do usually go pretty well in Sector 1. Checo comfortably letting us through there. And now as we head towards the end of the lap, bit of a messy Sector 2 too. It hasn't been that fantastic, and I don't think this is going to be enough to set us with the best time. On the borders, we nearly run onto the gravel. Thankfully we don't. That won't cost us. Hamilton currently quickest. We are going to go P1. A 22.9. Better than I thought. Ahead of both Mercs. Sainz and Verstappen then really struggling down there in P5. Max is not going to be happy with that. we're going to see if we can actually go again here. We might as well try for 4 runs. And just sort of trading times, but a much better exit there, not running wide. That's going to help us, and Norris even quicker than Verstappen, as we are now heading up to the hairpin. A little bit messy off the exit, and now, oh, well, that's not going to help us. Massive lockup, and that is the lap pretty much over. We might as well return to the pits. Well, Charles has gone quickest. Well, we have returned a 22.2 for him. He's ahead of us. Then, both Mercs, Hamilton leading Bottas, then Perez, P5, Carlos Sainz ahead of Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, George Russell, and Daniel Ricciardo. Verstappen, Russell, and Ricciardo, the weakest out of their sort of teammate duo, but it is Charles Leclerc ahead of us in terms of what tyres to go for. I think we'll just go with the ones we've been using. No real difference between them in terms of degradation. And now, it's not about taking pole from Charles. That's not what we need to do. He's way ahead of us, 6/10 I think it is. So the target for us has got to be to go out on track now, and we've got to just try and cement that P2, and decided to go out a little bit early so we can get plenty of runs in, and now Carlos Sainz is just going to sort of throw us all over the place. Then we can't really take the racing line. He's put us off a little bit. Yellow flags are out. I think that's just for him going slowly to let us through, but that has really cost us there. We're just going to have to trundle around. And now we've just, trundled around nicely, prepared for this lap. It's George Russell in front, and we're going to go very wide there onto the gravel. We don't lose too much time because of that, so we'll only lose about 2-3 hundredths down the straight starting our lap. Thankfully managed to salvage that there. You don't want to spin around or lose it. Very easy to do that in these conditions. But George Russell in front, and of course Carlos Sainz behind. And now this is the final lap in the session. We've got to put something in decent here, and it's a good start to the first sector, not making the mistake that we made on our very first lap. And now towards the end of the first sector, no purples, but that's not what we need. We need to just cement that P2, and now 4/10 quicker. A solid lap so far. Now heading into this left-hander, very difficult for grip in the wet, running a little bit onto the curb. Don't take too much of the runoff area. Now if we can keep it nice and tight through Acqua Minerale. No, we're going to run a little bit wide there. Hamilton's just gone P2, so we suddenly need a good lap here. That's cost us a bit of time running onto the blue runoff area, and now onto the Rolex runoff area a tad there. Managed to get the car smoothly on the exit, and Charles Leclerc goes even quicker. Son of a lap for him. Now the final sector, the left-hander, nearly running a bit deep. We've got to push it through the final corner, and that is a very, very decent exit. Liking that. Perez has gone P3. Where are we going to manage to go over the line? P2. Get in there. That's exactly what we needed. 3/10 behind my teammate. Not pole. It isn't pole. We don't need pole, though. We needed that P2. Exactly what we wanted. Charles Leclerc, though, is on pole. A 1 minute 22. 1:47. A whole 3/10 quicker than me. An absolute stunner of a lap. It's 2x2. Looking down the whole order. Haven't seen that too often. It's ourselves, Mercs, Red Bulls, Ferraris, and McLarens. Quite rare to see. But, of course, Charles is quickest. Fantastic lap from him. Once again, showing great quality pace and great race pace. Only really beat him at Bahrain thanks to the strategy. But of course, we do go well around here. And ourselves P2 on the inters. That's what we needed. Now in the race, in the drive, we'll be able to hopefully rival Charles for the win. 3/10 behind him in a wet quali. I am really, really happy with that. Don't think we could have got much better, and a very solid final lap to finish. Had we have cleaned up Acqua Minerale, we would have been a bit closer to him. But Mercedes next. Hamilton leading Bottas. Very interesting there. Hamilton usually a bit slower than Valtteri, but that has switched around a little bit in Q3. He is a whole 3/10 behind ourselves, so actually pretty close to us. A bit closer than I would have thought. Valtteri Bottas, P4, is just a little bit behind his teammate. Still a solid result for Mercedes because they're ahead of Red Bull. Perez leading Verstappen. He's just behind Valtteri Bottas. Verstappen just behind Perez. In fact, P4, P5 and P6 separated by under a tenth. Always fantastic to see. Perez there, P5, the Mexican. He's going to be happy with that. ahead of Max Verstappen. And I think Verstappen's going to be a bit disappointed with that, but of course, Ferrari up next. You've got Charles Leclerc has moved away from the team. George Russell replacing him for this season. He's P8, but in front of him, Carlos Sainz. As you'd expect, Carlos Sainz a bit quicker. Great to see the gap between those two. Extremely close, and they're not too far off the Red Bulls. They could get in the mix with them in the race, but of course, Carlos ahead of George. Then the McLaren struggling a little bit. P9 for Lando Norris, with Daniel Ricciardo just behind in P10, a little bit off the pace of his teammate, which we've seen quite a lot this season. It is Charles Leclerc on pole, followed by ourselves. Then Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, Perez, Verstappen, Sainz, Russell, Norris and Ricciardo round out the top 10.
Hello there and welcome back to Imola, home circuit of the Scuderia Ferrari. We expect to see a lot of local supporters in red today. They've all turned out for what we have every expectation of being a sensational event here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. A lap of Imola. Anti-clockwise, of course, unlike most of the Formula One circuits, will take our drivers around 3.1 miles of track. 19 turns, 9 right-handers and 10 left. Drivers will need to be precise at the hairpin at turn 7, given the subsequent uphill section. Without a good exit from that corner, they'll lose a lot of time on that stretch. And as always, a man with plenty of racing experience joins me in the commentary box. Today it's Anthony Davidson. Tell me, Ant, you're no stranger to surviving the melee of turn 1. So how do you keep out of trouble when there's so much going on around you?
There are 3 main things to worry about there, Crofty. Positioning, awareness and discipline. First, you have to put your car in a bit of space and make sure you have room to react to what the others are doing. Then you have to watch your mirrors and listen to the sounds around you to get a sense of where everyone is. And finally, just don't get too greedy. Just because a gap exists doesn't always mean you should go for it.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday puts him on pole, and the owner-driver alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Bottas, Sergio Perez and Verstappen, Sainz, Russell, Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, Fernando Alonso, Ocon, Pierre Gasly and Matsushita, Stroll, Schwartzman, Yuki Tsunoda and Antonio Giovinazzi, Mick Schumacher, Latifi, Joe and Nikita Mazepin. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Unlike Bahrain, there are no unexpected grid penalties before the race. But of course, we have got some split strategies. Leclerc, Hamilton and Bottas and George Russell all opting to start on the mediums. Everyone else opting to start on the softs. We are going to decide our strategy in a second. That's very, very interesting, though, in terms of what to watch for. There's the battle between myself and Charles. And what about the Red Bulls versus the Mercs? Can the Red Bulls get in there, especially with fast-starting soft tyres? Then, of course, Ferrari versus McLaren. Can the Alpines get into the points? That'll be interesting. Also, what about Matsushita and Schwartzman? Can Tsunoda and Giovinazzi get a good result? And Guan Yu from a disappointing P21. It's going to be a very, very interesting Grand Prix, I've got to say, and especially the battle between me and Charles. And I think in terms of strategy, I'd probably rather start on the mediums. The 2 cars behind us, the Mercs, are on the mediums, so we're not in danger of losing position to cars on the softs behind us. So I think we're going to go match Charles' strategy. And then I think tyre wear's a lot lower than that stating on the graphic round here. So I think we're going to go mediums to softs. And if tyre wear is really high for some random reason today, then we'll go mediums to hards. But I think we'll try for mediums to softs. I think that's got to be the plan in this Grand Prix. Gives us a bit of flexibility with the strategy. And here we go in Imola. Round number 2. 5 red lights. They're out and away we go. And the start for ourselves initially is decent, but then a little bit too aggressive on the throttle. Hamilton and Bottas behind. Not a great start for the Red Bulls. A bit boxed in. Verstappen, of course, ahead of Perez. And now we can see the 2 Mercs side by side. Bottas ahead of Hamilton, but now Hamilton getting past Bottas down the inside line. Send the Red Bulls of Perez, Verstappen. You've got Norris And then Carlos Sainz versus George Russell. Russell trying to come through. There's Pierre Gasly, P10. Forced up Daniel Ricciardo, but now Alonso's trying to take the points position off Pierre Gasly. This is a fantastic looking battle here. Fernando Alonso is going to try and carry it up the hill. Gasly has the lead, but Alonso down the inside line. See it now, and he gets the move done. That's P10 for him. Daniel Ricciardo, after a poor start, is P12 ahead of Esteban Ocon, Lance Stroll, and Nobuharu Matsushita. Then it is Robert Schwartzman P16, Schumacher P17, and Yuki Tsunoda with a poor start down in P18. Then the Williams of Giovinazzi and Latifi, followed by Nikita Mazepin, and a slow starting Guan Yu Zhou. Looking back to the top, though, Charles Leclerc ahead of ourselves, and it's Lewis Hamilton who's already dropped away a couple of seconds behind ourselves. Wonder if he's struggling a bit. Wait, what? He's in! Lewis Hamilton is into the pits. I'm looking at his front wing, and it looks perfectly intact. I am really confused. As now, Sergio Perez versus Valtteri Bottas. Perez down the inside line, gets the move done for P3. Bottas struggling on his mediums. Fantastic racing there. We love to see it. And Lewis Hamilton, I do believe, has had a front wing change. That is why he's in. There'd be no other reason for him to come in, but didn't look broken at all. So maybe a little knock. That was probably costing him time while he dropped back. He's on the softs now, so committing himself to a two-stop strategy, but what a disaster to the start of the Grand Prix for Lewis Hamilton. Let's not forget, he had that disaster last time out, and that is continuing, of course. He had the mechanical failure in Bahrain, and now he's having to do an extra pit stop thanks to a broken front wing. Verstappen, P5, the next man onto the back of Valtteri Bottas, of course, it is. Then Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, P7, and a teammate, George Russell, who is P8. Sainz is going to be having a bit of a look at Lando Norris, potentially, when we start to get DRS. The Ferrari looking a bit more pacey. Seems to be going a bit slowly here, and surely not. Surely not. I think it's a mechanical failure for Carlos Sainz, and it's a mechanical failure for Carlos Sainz. What a shame for him. As further back, Max Verstappen versus Valtteri Bottas. The action continues, and now both Red Bulls have got past Valtteri Bottas. And look at this! Pierre Gasly versus Fernando Alonso. Gasly in front of Alonso. He's regained that position. Alonso's teammate, Esteban Ocon, also in the points. P10, head of Daniel Ricciardo. Now Lance Stroll has been overtaken by Robert Schwartzman. Fantastic racing here. In terms of going back to Carlos, really unlucky there for him at Ferrari's home GP, but what fantastic racing, I've got to say. And now to ourselves, we're just trying to get within DRS of Charles. We've gone fantastically well in the first sector this lap. Yellow flags are out. That's just for Carlos Sainz, who's parked on the inside there. But we're just trying to get within DRS, constantly pushing each lap, not using too much of the mediums though. Just trying to get within 1 second as we go quicker. So now Norris is going to join the ever-increasing list of drivers to get past Valtteri Bottas while he's on medium tyres. Looking further back, though, Daniel Ricciardo versus Esteban Ocon. Ricciardo, after a poor start, is back up into the points. P10 for him now. Great overtake on Esteban Ocon. Non-stop racing in the first 4 laps of this Grand Prix. You absolutely love to see it. George Russell, currently P7. He's the next man to have a little think at getting past Valtteri Bottas. Bottas has really been struggling on those medium tyres. Russell hasn't, though. He's caught up to Valtteri Bottas, and they're on the same tyres. I don't know if it's the thing with Bottas in the mediums or the Merc in the mediums, but it is not really working. It's not a fantastic combination. At the moment, Bottas has lost out to both Red Bulls, and now Lando Norris, and it will be George Russell next. And he's on the same compound of tyre, so this race is going from bad to worse for the Mercedes driver, his teammate, all the way down the order, way behind Guan Yu Zhou after that very early pit stop. And now it's going to be George Russell chasing down Valtteri Bottas. DRS is open for both cars. Bottas just within a second of Lando Norris before the detection point. Russell is going to get close, but not close enough this lap. We, though, are just trundling along pretty nicely here on lap number 5. I really am pushing quite a bit. I have to say, Charles has pushed me the most out of, Robert Schwartzman, he had his season 1, never really pushed me. He was an F2 driver, always further down the field. Yuki didn't really push me, but this is the most I've been pushed by an AI ever really on the game. And we are throwing everything at it while not burning out the mediums and trying to get close to Charles. But yeah, it's really, really difficult. We're just not really getting within that second. Once we're within that second, we got the DRS down the main straight, and a lovely helping of that is going to give us perfect opportunity to be able to fight him a little bit. But we are still pushing and just still trying to get within the DRS, getting closer this lap, but still just not close enough. Well, George Russell versus Valtteri Bottas. This is going to be an exciting fight. We saw it at the end of the Bahrain Grand Prix, and it's coming again. George Russell round the outside line into turn one. Oh, and there's contact there. Initially, Bottas shoving Russell out a little bit. Then Russell clatters back into him. Russell's front wing looks all right. After that, smashing into the side port of Bottas's Mercedes. Russell gets the move done, but he is going very slowly through these corners, and all of a sudden the train with Pierre Gasly is catching right onto him, and I think Russell, like Hamilton has, might have a rather invisible front wing issue here because he's going very slowly, and you can see through Aqua Minerale really backing up into Valtteri. Valtteri is not going to be close enough though to go for Move and George, and while all this is happening, Lando is getting quite a way away from Valtteri Bottas, and that is probably going to be the end of the Grand Prix. That Bottas isn't going to be getting past the McLaren again to try and take that P5. But George still defending from Valtteri here as we now going to head down the main straight, and George is in to the pits, definitely holding up that long train of cars, and it will probably be a replacement of front wing. 7 laps in though, I think you could probably slap on the hards, but it's going to be the soft tyres and a fresh front wing for the Ferrari driver. He's going to go for that two-stop, but like Hamilton, will he come out ahead or behind Lewis Hamilton, as now Guan Yu Zhou has got back past Nikita Mazepin. He, of course, had a terrible start, now getting back past the house driver, and Hamilton speeds through, clearly making good advantage of his soft tyres. But, of course, George is going to be on fresher tyres and will be looking to chase down Lewis. A real shame, though. Both Ferraris with big issues in this Grand Prix. Top 5, Leclerc, ourselves, Perez, Verstappen, and then Lando Norris. And we are now finally within a second of Charles Leclerc. We were within a second at the detection point. We still are, and the DRS is on. The fastest lap is there. And Jeff telling us that we've got a little bit of a potential issue with the car. Not what I wanted to hear, Jeff. But in terms of strategy, the team clearly agreeing with me that medium to soft is, looking at the tyre wear now, definitely going to be the best strategy. Perez and Verstappen fighting further back. Hopefully we're not going to have a mechanical failure. That'd be a bit of a disaster.
Okay, looks like a mechanical failure. We're going to have
We
to
are.
ask you to find a safe spot to retire.
Oh, gosh.
This is serious.
We're retiring with a mechanical failure. Low durability on the car, of course, and we are paying the price, I suppose. I kind of jinxed it by saying I hope we're not going to have a mechanical failure after you said we're going to have a sort of issue. I was hoping it just to be another ERS issue, but that was out of the Grand Prix, and that could be pivotal for the championship fight with Leclerc. But what a shame. What a shame.
They take the checkered flag then here in Imola in what has been another outstanding Grand Prix. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I think that smart tyre management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
The faces on our top 3 look so incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory and a brilliant performance from them all.
Well, I think the only way to describe this Grand Prix has to just be sort of frustration and disappointment, because Imola, a really strong track for me, really wanted to have a good race, but we ended up out of the race on just lap number 8, and not a great day for Ferrari power units at their home race, with also Carlos Sainz retiring from the race. But great to see Charles on the top of the podium for the first time this season. P1 on the grid to P1 at the flag, and a dominant win, finishing 26 seconds ahead of Verstappen. He went for that medium to hard strategy. Didn't opt for the mediums to softs, but executed that really, really well. 25 points in the end. He'll be happy with that, I'm sure. And of course, could have actually still won with another pit stop to go for the fastest lap on the softs. But great to see him getting some good points. Fantastic points for the team. One off the maximum, and he does finish ahead of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. P6 to P2, so fantastic work for him. 1 minute 16, 8.96 his best lap, a little bit off my teammate, and did finish 26 seconds behind, but 18 points in the end. Fantastic drive from the Dutchman. And let's have a look at the strategy. DS did go for the soft to hard strategy like his teammate, executed that perfectly, got an okay start, got ahead of his teammate, and then of course cleared Bottas, and then tussled with Perez. He was tussling with Perez when we left the Grand Prix thanks to a mechanical failure, and clearly managed to finish ahead of Checo, who finished P3 to make it both Red Bulls on the podium. P5 to P3 for Checo on the same strategy as his teammate. Another great result for him. 15 points in the end. In terms of how far he finished off his teammate, just 4 seconds. So despite Verstappen charging at him before we left, Perez still with a decent result. He finished ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who only finished 3 seconds behind Sergio, which I find very, very surprising. When we left him, he was dropping like a rock down the field on those mediums, but clearly took the advantage of fresher hards towards the end of the race on that one-stop strategy. Took the advantage. I managed to take 12 points and actually finished just ahead of Lando Norris, which I wasn't really expecting, because it was mediums to hards for him. So executed that well, I've got to say. And yeah, he's ahead of both McLarens. Lando Norris, P5. He'll be a little bit frustrated, potentially, that he didn't manage to get P4, but still 10 points in the end. Finished under a second behind Valtteri Bottas, and great progress from 9th on the grid to 5th, and for Ricciardo from 10th on the grid to 6th. The McLaren didn't look that quick this weekend, but they were reliable and didn't break front wings, and as a result, P5 and 6, very, very solid for the guys at McLaren. Of course, Ricciardo, 10 seconds off his teammate, but still that a great result for him, and that was probably because of the poor start that got him stuck behind the likes of Alonso and Ocon and Pierre Gasly, who finishes just behind, only 6 seconds in fact. Another great result from the Frenchman, P13 to P7, outside the top 10. 2 points once again, 6 points today, not 15 like he managed to get in Bahrain, but another fantastic drive from Pierre. We know that AlphaTauri is not really that quick, so to be in the points with the best lap of 1 minute 17.576, you know, in that AlphaTauri, really, really solid. And he finished in front of George Russell by under half a second. That is very, very close at the flag. George managed to take the fastest lap. He went for a 2-stop strategy, medium to soft to medium till the end, and it was an absolutely fantastic drive from him, clearly, to recover. It could have been so much more without needing to go for the 2-stopper and a replacement for his broken front wing, but fastest lap of 1 minute 16.450, confirming Ferrari's pace. Really decent recovery drive from him to take 5 points, adding to his tally in his debut season for Ferrari. Alonso opens his and Alpine's account for the season with a couple of points and a P9. Finishes only 5 seconds behind Russell, and it looks like fended off Lewis Hamilton till the end of the Grand Prix. Great work for him to get in the points. The Alpines were looking pretty quick, so great to see him capitalising on that ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who did manage to recover to the points on that two-stop strategy after pitting on lap number 1, but he was 5 seconds ahead of Russell and went for the medium soft hard, so inflicted further damage to himself by going medium soft hard, which was definitely, I don't think, not the way to go, and finishes P10. Just 1 point for him. A very, very poor start to the season for him, and not that great either for Mercedes as a team as a whole. Of course, Hamilton P10 recovered, but nowhere near as well as Russell didn't. I know, of course, Russell did end up having his front wing incident later than Hamilton, but of course Hamilton P10. Lance Stroll, P11 for AlphaTauri, got points last time out at Bahrain, didn't manage to take any today. Still though, a great drive from 15th on the grid, ahead of Esteban Ocon, who will be probably a little bit disappointed to finish behind a slower AlphaTauri in the hands of Lance Stroll, but still P12, it's solid. A little bit off his teammate, but still solid result for him, and definitely I think he's gaining confidence, and I've said that last season. I think he's just gaining confidence. He'll be looking next time out probably to beat Lance Stroll, who was 5 seconds quicker out the flag. Another great result though for Matsushita, P13 from P14 on the grid. Great quali pace and decent race pace is getting him some very strong results. Only 4 seconds behind a very, very strong Alpine car of Ocon, and they are similar cars, so great work from Matsushita. He's ahead of Yuki Tsunoda for Alfa Romeo, who gained some positions. Poor start, worked his way back up the field and finished just behind his fellow countryman, actually, in that Aston Martin. So a solid drive from Yuki, and a solid one too from Robert Schwartzman. When we left him, he was quite a bit ahead of that duo finishing in front of him, of Tsunoda and Matsushita. Dropped a bit further back, but still for Robert, he is improving all the time. It's sort of his rookie season this season. It feels like that for him, probably. And he's starting to get some good results. Then the Williams of Giovinazzi, who didn't get lapped, and Nicholas Latifi, who did get lapped. Great to see Giovinazzi not getting lapped and getting somewhat a decent result, finishing just behind a quicker Aston Martin and a quicker Alfa Romeo. So, decent result for Antonio, starting to get the hang of how to drive that Williams car, and his teammate Latifi also making progress from the rear of the field up to P17 for him, finishing a lap behind the pace of my teammate, but overall a decent drive for him. Couldn't really challenge his teammate, but finishes ahead of Guan Yu Zhou, who had a bit of a dismal race, drop to the back of the pack after a poor start, managed to get ahead of the Hassers by the end there, but he certainly won't be too happy with finishing down there in P18 for Alfa Romeo. Whole lap behind and not really clicking with that car. Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin round out those who have finished. Mazepin, the slower of the duo's fastest lap, 5/10 off his teammate. But very interesting there to look at those race results. No surprises though to see the Hassers right at the back of the order. Of course, myself and Carlos not making it to the end of the race due to some unfortunate mechanical issues. Of course, everyone from Hamilton down did complete the softer hard strategy, apart from me and Carlos, because we didn't even make it to the end of the Grand Prix. Unfortunately, because of our mechanical failure, we have dropped all the way down to P3 in the driver's standings. Charles now has the lead, 44 points out of 2 rounds for him. That's out of a maximum 52, so a really solid start to the season for the Monegasque at our team. 14 points ahead of Max Verstappen, who now has 30 after that podium today. We are just 5 points behind Verstappen, which isn't a problem. Our car's quicker. We should be able to reel that gap back in. But 19 points behind Charles. We only have 25 points. So, to be honest, it's a little bit worrying for ourselves to be already 19 points behind after 2 rounds. Of course, we know that's because of the mechanical failure, but that is a lot of work for us to do to try and catch up to my teammate, considering the gap from first to second in results is just 7 points. So, a little bit frustrating for us. Pierre Gasly, though, does drop a place, but still has a very decent P4 in the standings for AlphaTauri. 21 points, only 4 behind us after 2 rounds into the season. 9 behind Max Verstappen, and he is in front of Perez by 2 points. So a fantastic start to the season for Pierre. Doubt he'll stay there because there's a lot of faster cars charging from behind. But Pierre Gasly, P4, ahead of Perez, the sister car, in P5 for Red Bull. 19 points for him, starting to improve after a okay-ish Bahrain Grand Prix. Then, of course, P6, Lando Norris improving in the McLaren, only 3 points behind Checo. With that result today, 2 good point scores, and that puts him in P6. Bottas, after just 1 point at the Bahrain Grand Prix, moves back up the order here at Imola. P7 for him. He has now got 13 points, just 3 behind Norris, and importantly, now the gap to Perez, though, has increased further. That's now 8 points, quite a lot. No, that's to Gasly. It's 8 points. 6 to Perez. The issue, though, is that massive 17-point gap to Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz drops down to P8 with no points today. He sits on his solitary 10 and is now 6 points behind Lando Norris, but I'm sure I'll be able to reel that back in. Ricciardo with points today, and of course his first points of the season, is up to P9, just 2 behind Carlos Sainz. Then Lance Stroll takes P10 for AlphaTauri, no points today, equal on points with Ricciardo, but still a solid position in the top 10 in the standings. George Russell, 2 rounds in, is just 3 points behind his teammates, 7 points on the board in P11. A really good start to the season for him, and of course, pretty much matching his teammate Carlos Sainz at points. You've got to feel then, of course, today just got unlucky with the front wing issue, but Carlos got unlucky with the mechanical failure. Then Fernando Alonso, P12, with a couple of points. He won't really be getting into the mix for the top 10 this season, but of course, good start to his point-scoring campaign for him. Then Hamilton, P13. Don't think I'd be saying that. Only 1 point on the board. A very disappointing start to the season for the Mercedes driver. A lot of work to do, gotta say, heading into the next rounds, because he's 43 points behind my teammate, 29 off Verstappen. He's going to need a stunner of a season to repair what has been a very poor start to it. Of course, P13 for him. The rest of the drivers are still yet to score. Looking at the constructor standings, the team have 69 points. Solid start to the season. Happy with that, you know. But, of course, the issue is Red Bull have closed in that gap. Just 20 points behind us now with 49. Thanks to my mechanical failure today. They are in front of AlphaTauri, who have dropped down a place, but still 29 points on the board. They are 20 points behind Red Bull, but that's not their fight this season. Their fight this season is a solid, probably, I think they'd focus on trying to get in the mix with the McLarens and the Ferraris potentially, but the focus for them has got to be potentially trying to get P6 if they can. You don't know. Maybe they can. Definitely P7 at worst, but solid for them on 29 points, and McLaren move up ahead of Ferrari. That's P4 and 5. McLaren have 24 points, 5 behind AlphaTauri. They are comfortably ahead of McLaren. Of course, McLaren are comfortably ahead of McLaren. No, they're not. They're comfortably ahead of Ferrari. But, of course, McLaren are going to be looking at that. They're going to be thinking, right, okay, we've got AlphaTauri in front of us. We can comfortably get them. Their issue is going to be staying ahead of charging Mercedes duo of Hamilton and Bottas. But Ferrari P5, bit of a poor race today at their home race. They are already 7 points behind McLaren. Mercedes only 3 behind Ferrari after an improving race here today for Valtteri Bottas, but 55 points behind ourselves, 35 behind Red Bull, so not looking too great of a start to a season for Mercedes. Alpine have 2, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, Williams and Haas still yet to score, but of course the gap at the top of the standings is decreasing from ourselves to Red Bull. AlphaTauri dropping down a little bit, but they won't be too bothered. Still great points for them. Of course, in the championship, we're down to P3, Charles P1, and Max Verstappen P2. It's going to be really interesting to see how that title fight unfolds this season. But of course, Charles Leclerc is your winner, and we sadly haven't made it to the end of this GP with a mechanical failure. If you guys have enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you next time when we'll move to hopefully a promising Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona.